am not a sentimental person. I get rid of material things quite easily. My mother, when she asked me to clean out my childhood bedroom, she became alarmed at the number of things that were ending up in the recycle and give away pile, so much so that she told my husband, Adiv, "You get in there and tell her not to do that before she gives away her wedding dress or recycles her high school yearbooks." I just don't tend to feel an attachment to things. But every once in a while, I do get fiercely attached to something material. And it's usually something odd that would have no consequence in anyone else's eyes. For example, shortly after I started working here, Adiv, my husband, left a note on my desk. It had the letter A, the letter E for Elana, and a heart in between. Now, this is a Post-it note that is 6 years old, but if I lost it, I would be heartbroken. And no, he could not write me another one. It would not be the same thing. Some of you are thinking your rabbi is nuts, but some of you are nodding your head in agreement because you know that the loss of an object, it's all subjective as to how much it will be missed. Judaism has a lot of wisdom to teach about lost objects. Recently, I was studying the Mishnah of Baba Metzia, and it said, if someone loses an object and you find it, even if the object is only worth a pruta, which is a very small unit of money, like a penny, even if the object is only worth a pruta, you have to go to a great deal of effort to find its owner. Now, you have to wonder why, if it's only worth a penny, would you bother to return it? Well, number one, a pruta might be a great deal of money to the person who lost it. Number two, perhaps it's only worth a pruta today, but it could appreciate in value. But number three, its monetary value has nothing to do with its sentimental value. There has been a lot of loss this year since the pandemic started. And it got me thinking about this Mishnah, not just in terms of the law of returning lost objects, but as a metaphor. What if it's not just discussing objects in the material world? What if it's referring to what's been lost in the spiritual and emotional world? People have lost great things, human lives and livelihoods, and there is no doubt that those who have lost those things have suffered the most among us. But there have been smaller losses too. The celebration of a significant birthday, long-awaited travel plans, the opportunity to compete in a high school competition. And these little losses, people tell me, "Ay, Rabbi, in the face of someone who's lost a loved one or a job, it's nothing. It's merely worth a pruta." But these little losses are adding up, and they are crushing our resilience and our hope and our joy under the weight of the compilation of so many small losses. There's a category in the Mishnah for a person who has lost an object and has given up hope that it will ever be returned. This person is called someone who's achieved a state of yeush, despair. And at the time that you find an object, if you can reasonably assume that its owner has despaired of its ever being returned, then it's finders keepers instead of having to go through the effort of returning it. If you're curious about how do you determine whether someone's despaired over their lost object, I can teach you after the holiday. It's a whole long chapter. Anyhow, this word despair really strikes me because when we lose things that are important to us, we can reach a state of despair. But the thing is, we hear stories all the time, feel-good stories in the news about lost objects that made their way home. A stuffed animal left in the seat pocket of an airplane that went on an international flight, and some good-hearted flight attendant took the time to track down the tiny owner of that stuffed animal and return it. I once had my grandmother's diamond earring returned to me 2 years after I lost it, when our refrigerator repairman moved the refrigerator, picked it up, and handed it back to me. And I don't know who was happier, me for receiving this object that had belonged to my grandmother, or the refrigerator repairman who felt the joy of returning a lost object. At this time of year, we talk so much about tshuva. It gets translated into English as repentance. That is an inaccurate translation. Tshuva means returning. And one of the themes of the high holidays is the opportunity to return. It's the opportunity to return to the best in ourselves. It's the opportunity to return to hope and optimism and finding the strength to straighten up and fly right. It's the opportunity to return to God's waiting arms and walk a holy path. And what if, just like I played around with the metaphor of returning a lost object, be it only worth a pruta? What if we played around with the metaphor of return, tshuva, this year? And what if it wasn't completely an internal and reflective journey this season? What if we did our best to return people's strength and hope and optimism? We cannot return the people who have passed away, obviously. But we can exchange loneliness for companionship and love. And we cannot give back vanished income. But we can return a sense of security, either emotionally or if it be in our power financially, to the person. We have all lost things during this pandemic. Perhaps some of us have entered a state of yeush, despair, that what we've lost can never be returned. However, we're all gathered here for the high holiday spiritual process of tshuva, of return. This can be a time to look around these next 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the holiest days of our calendar, and to ask ourselves, how can I return something that has been lost to someone I love, even if what they lost is only worth a pruta? L'Shana Tova, a sweet new year.